Ward 4 Councilman Bishop got a break this afternoon from testifying before the grand jury. He had volunteered to come before the jury, but probably would have been called anyway. He and Harold McEwan owned part interest in a company that did business with the city, and citizens asked the grand jury to look into possible conflict of interest. That came after the city council had dropped their investigations.
The grand jury kept Councilman Bishop behind that door for almost 4 hours today. It's not known how long it's going to take the grand jury to decide whether there is a conflict of interest, but they will be meeting tomorrow. Susie Webb, Action 4 from the county courthouse.
There was some good news announced at today's Corrections Department meeting. Of the 6 prison facilities seeking accreditation, all received it, making Oklahoma 6 for 6.
Representatives from both the community correctional centers, my office, and the Division of Institutions are in Washington today, and right about this time we'll be receiving their official accreditation certificate.
Oklahoma City's Correctional Center got the word today of accreditation. The minimum security prison has really shaped up over the past 10 years in operation, with new and modern cooking equipment for a kitchen serving more than 150 men each day. All meals are eaten in a cafeteria that looks as good as many restaurants. The ACA asked officials here to hang signs so each area could be clearly identified. Another example of improvement are recently painted rooms. Smoke detectors were also installed. It could be called a prison cell, but looks more like a motel room. Inmates who are referred to as residents especially like the recreation provided for them. But playing on the outside is quite a different ball game. That's why help on the inside is so important.
From what I can tell, they treat a man the way he wants to be treated, and they don't especially treat you like a convict. They treat you like if you work and do what's asked of you and follow the rules, then you get privileges accordingly.
They have a lot of good things. They have a lot of treatment programs for alcohol and drug abuse, which I attend, and I'm getting a lot of, good things out of them. And the aspect of getting to go out and work and build for your future, I think that's great too.
This manual lists many requirements that must be met before accreditation can occur at an institution like this. 195 different standards, which indicates the state's corrections department is trying to get its act together. It doesn't mean everything is perfect here, but it does show that life being locked up can and is being improved. At the Oklahoma City Correctional Center, Ed Stewart, Action 4.
Reagan's plane arrived at Tinker Field about 2:40 this afternoon for the express purpose of refueling. The Reagan transition team on its way back to California after a trip to Washington. Local media members were not allowed to meet with the president-elect, an official of the transition team instructing police and the Secret Service to keep the media roped off. It was first thought Reagan would stay on the plane during refueling, but Nancy and Ronald Reagan deplaned and were greeted by Tinker Acting Commander Colonel Gordon Masterson. There was no gala reception, no political fanfare, no press conference. The future president escorted inside by members of the National Media, Secret Service, and Tinker authorities. The plane was refueled, and before long, Reagan had retraced his steps and boarded the government plane. The final wave in the Reagan visit was over, and Tinker security relaxed.
And Ronald Reagan's plane taxis to the runway, the short refueling stop over. Now, the president-elect spending about 30 or 35 minutes here in Oklahoma City today. The flight will now continue on its way to California from Washington. The president stopping briefly here at Mid-America. At Tinker Field, Larry Audis, Action 4.
I can't tell you what the fire was like. I was on the 16th floor, and
What did you do?
just stayed there. I mean, I tried to get out 3 times, and it was too smoky.
And we woke up about 6:30, listening to the fire engines going on. Finally heard people screaming in our hotel and looked out. Jump, and the MGM was on fire, so we looked out, and there was people hanging out the windows and sheets hanging down, people trying to climb down.
They were saying they had tied sheets together, trying to get out. It was just horrible.
It's really, really the worst thing I've ever
seen. The helicopter, they couldn't get to him. They were circling, saying, you know, don't jump, don't jump.
Yeah.
And they went on the roof, and I guess a lot of people had gotten on the roof. 2,000 people were on the roof trying to get off.
And one woman, I remember, she was crying, "I can't leave without my father. My father's still in there."
As they were throwing furniture out the windows, trying to get
out. They were climbing from balcony to balcony, trying to get down, because the ladders would only go up to about the 9th floor.
I need to buy a phone.
All right, what kind did you want to buy?
If you wanted to buy a special design phone last week, you paid a certain price, but you only owned part of the phone. If you buy the phone this week, you get to own the whole thing, but this time it's going to cost you more money.
You used to pay only for the outside part. It was cheaper because the phone company owned the electronic parts. But a new state law says now you can buy the whole phone. But special phones will cost up to $60 more.
The indication that we have from customer research is that the customer wants to own, as the old commercial used to say, the whole thing. They want the internal parts and the shell both.
There is one drawback. If your design phone breaks down, it's only guaranteed for 1 year. You can buy up to a 4-year guarantee, but it will cost you $55. Rick DeReyes, Action 4.
City school board members will be facing one of the most controversial issues of the year, school closings. Tonight, Superintendent Tom Payzant will present to the board a list of schools recommended to be shut down. Only schools that have an enrollment under 200 students are on that list. The elementary schools are Nichols Hills, Willard, Eugene Field, Kaiser, Lafayette, Mayfair, Putnam Heights, and Sunset. The fifth-year centers are Green Pastures, Parker, and Truman. Carver School is also being considered, but classes there would just be transferred to another building. Protests and studies by the neighborhood groups have gone on for more than a year now. Though the school board is not expected to close down all 12 schools, they won't be making that decision until the 1st of January. Susie Webb, Action 4.
Every day. 34-year-old Randall Robinson and 29-year-old Johnny Glenn Gillum didn't say much as they were escorted into the Stevens County courtroom. They're charged with a brutal triple murder in Velma last summer. Prosecution witnesses say Robinson from Texas left a party and returned about an hour and a half later with blood on their boots and a few pieces of jewelry they later pawned for $5. The nude bodies of a middle-aged man and 2 women were found sprawled in the house. They'd been shot several times. Prosecution has already shown that the men owned guns similar to the ones used in the killing, then threw them into a lake in Texas. Prosecution is trying to show that the 3 men actually drove to Velma that night. They're piecing the picture together, witness by witness. The prosecution...
They're charged with using Senator Stipe's official position as a state senator and conspiring to extort $15,000 from Lewis, his wife, and his company in Colorado by making the Lewises believe that Stipe could prevent the extradition of Lewis if such monies were paid. But if the money were not paid, that Lewis would be returned to Oklahoma and he would thereafter suffer dire consequences, both economic and otherwise.
Can't explain the motives of those who have perpetrated this, but they know what their motives are, and I do assure one and all that they're not pure nor wholesome, nor founded in justice nor right. And I look forward to the day that this harassment will be terminated, and I predict that that day will come before too long.
The Corrections Department feels that they've complied with Judge Bohanan's order by providing 8 inmate law clerks at the Prison Law Library in McAllister. But American Civil Liberties Union attorneys say that isn't enough. The inmates are not bona fide lawyers, and they cannot give quality legal advice. There are charges that the clerks may be abusing their privileges by accepting money for their services. And there have been charges that the clerks have been harassed by prison employees. The ACLU wants the Corrections Department to hire at least 1 lawyer for each corrections institution, but corrections officials say they can't do that.
It would be a great cost to the taxpayers, and as you noted here, he said that Texas is not only wanting the paid lawyers, they're now going back to the inmate clerks. So all the arguments about inmate clerks and the problems with those are sort of mooted if, in fact, Texas is going back to them, and they think that's a good argument.
But the ACLU says that's not the point.
The case we've presented has been to show the court that unless they provide those attorneys, that they won't meet that duty.
But by the time court was dismissed late this afternoon, Bohanan was not convinced by either side. Although he commended the Corrections Department for trying to comply with his rulings, he ordered a U.S. Justice Department survey to determine whether inmates actually had adequate access to legal aid. Ted Brown, Action 4 at the federal courthouse in Oklahoma City. Christmas shoppers are noticing higher prices this year. Inflation is a factor on many items, but there's more to it than that for some things. Take nuts, for instance. The drought took its toll on Oklahoma's pecan crop this year, so there's a general shortage, and that means a higher price. The peanut crop suffered also. The pound of peanuts that sold for 85 cents last year is going for $2.65 this year. It didn't have anything to do with the Carter boys being away from the farm. Again, it's the weather, plus the huge demands on the limited crop.
But the big problem is that people use a lot of pecans. There's confectionery people and bakery people, and there's not going to be a whole lot of those little, what we call wild pecans or seedling or native pecans.
Despite the price, Pruitt says business is still good. A lot of companies are giving nuts to their employees. Higher prices make them a thoughtful gift when you think of all those holiday foods that require nuts. It's been widely advertised that there's as much protein in a pound of peanuts as there is in a pound of meat. Before long, a pound of peanuts is going to cost just as much. Ted Brown, Action 4.
At exactly 11:55 this morning, Oklahoma survivors of Pearl Harbor placed a memorial wreath on the anchor of the USS Oklahoma. It was 39 years ago to the moment that Japanese fighters roared over the mountains into quiet Pearl Harbor. These men were there. They lost 2,300 friends and 10 warships, but they never lost the memories.
I was on the Naval Air Station at Pearl Harbor when this all happened, and battleship California was sunk right in my front yard, just a stone's throw. And this anchor was on the Oklahoma, which capsized bottom up and trapped many people inside, which was a sad thing. They worked day and night trying to get them out. That was a very difficult job. They saved quite a few, but not all of them. We thought it was going to be the end of all of us. We kind of felt sure that was the end.
At the USS Oklahoma Memorial, Sue Lauer, Action 4.
Most record stores in the Oklahoma City area sold out of John Lennon's latest album before noon. It was released only a few weeks ago and was doing fairly well in sales. But now it will be in demand all over the country. Record store managers anticipated that, and now they're just trying to keep it on the shelves.
Unless we have trouble getting it from the manufacturer, I don't think we're going to run into a shortage. I certainly hope not. We've got enough to last us for a couple of days, and then we have reordered heavily on it. And it should be in within a day or two, hopefully, like I said, unless we run into complications. But it's going to be nationwide.
People rushed in from work during their lunch hours to buy one of Lennon's albums as a kind of tribute to a musician who helped set the pace of today's music.
I just got a call from my brother in Stillwater. He's a professor up at OSU, and he said that Stillwater's completely sold out already of the John Lennon, the new albums of John Lennon. So I decided I'd go out and pick up him a copy and me a copy both.
A big loss to the country. It really is a big loss. Because musically speaking, they've made an awful lot of people happy. They wouldn't be where they were if they didn't.
When this album hit the United States in the early 1960s, it sold more copies than any other album in history. And now that John Lennon is dead, old Beatle albums and John Lennon albums will probably become collector's items. Jane Boone, Action 4, Northwest Oklahoma City.
They were in a self-benefiting way to this. So, similar to what Patty just shared with you, been made on more or less a subjective basis. The Act, which is the Fair Labor Standards Act, has been accepted. But on the point of the merit system,
Recently, Highway Patrol troopers voted not to pass 55 miles an hour in a chase unless it's to save life or property. The decision came when Trooper James Pishel was fired after a high-speed chase had killed 2 people. Troopers claim the state's policy on chases is vague. It's a restriction on their jobs. Now, the Fraternal Order of Police, which represents Oklahoma City police officers, is considering the same question. Since the district attorney has prosecuted the trooper, police feel their careers are on the line, and they want the policy on chases spelled out.
The officers are concerned about what the district attorney's office feels, and we feel that the Highway Patrol administration did let the officer down. We feel that they handled it very poorly.
The Fraternal Order of Police will put the question to their membership at their regular meeting Thursday night. If both policemen and troopers vote not to have any more high-speed chases unless it's a dire emergency, they say it will change law enforcement in Oklahoma for the worse. I'm Rick DeReyes, Action 4 at police headquarters in downtown Oklahoma City.
Flight 311 rolls to a stop on time, of course, but later to return to Atlanta on another maiden flight.
Now, Easter Airlines is stressing the significance of a direct flight from Oklahoma City to Atlanta. And to kick off the initial flight, they got a hand from a special person.
Well, who else? Mickey Mouse, of course. But Mickey's not alone now. This celebration is complete with pickers and players, bluegrass music, and a little southern dancing. And then there's a lot of food and drink. That's a very necessary part of welcoming any airline to Oklahoma City. Well, the food never does run out, but the ribbon cutters do manage to tear themselves away to finish their job. And that leaves an open gate. And as far as Eastern's concerned, an open sky to Atlanta. Larry Audis, Action Forward, Will Rogers Airport.
I'm ready now to move on after the November election to try my dead level best to give Oklahoma voters a better law enforcement, finer service than we have been able to do, because I feel like we're going to be able to have more personnel in the sheriff's office after the election.
This optimism was part of the last chapter in Gene Wells' political career. It was the primary before his November re-election. Wells had spent the last 31 years of his life working in Oklahoma law enforcement. He was a detective in the Oklahoma City Police Department, then took the job of undersheriff in 1951, a job he held for 26 years. In 1977, the new Oklahoma County Sheriff was Gene Wells, a man who wanted to keep the job until 2 days ago. He checked into Deaconess Hospital shortly after he had resigned. Wells said poor health was the reason for his resignation. He had high blood pressure, and it is said that he was suffering from leukemia. This morning, his friends and workers in the county courthouse were shocked and saddened at Wells' death.
I think the people of Oklahoma County have lost a friend, number one. Number two, they have lost a man with a great deal of experience in law enforcement. The office is saddened. All the members of the office that were present at the time I arrived at the office was called into a meeting, and they were told about this sad situation.
Wells had more than his health to worry about. He had been the subject of a grand jury investigation for more than a week, an investigation into Wells' handling of federal funds that he had been given for the care of federal prisoners in the county jail. This morning, District Attorney Bob Macy expressed his sympathy, but he believes that the grand jury investigation did not contribute to Wells' death.
I have an obligation as District Attorney of this county to investigate all allegations of crime committed and further to act as legal advisor to the grand jury. The media has an obligation to report those events. I like to feel that we both carried out our responsibilities in a very professional way.
Behind this door, the grand jury is trying to decide whether it will continue its investigation into the sheriff's office. But now that Gene Wells is dead, speculation is that the investigation could be called off. But right now, no one will say for sure. Jane Boone, Action 4 at the County Courthouse.
Any investigation, I feel any investigation that involves an office, a public office, private office, or anything else should be continued until it's all covered up.
I think that the man served for 30 years, was a good public citizen, a good sheriff, and I think the newspaper just drove the man, to actually kill him. I think that it just broke his heart.
I feel that it ought to continue because if he's done something wrong, then he's using up the taxpayers' money and all that for something that we didn't even know about.
Well, I think it should have taken place before the election. I think there should have been something, it should have been brought out before the election.
Do you think now that he's died that the investigation, the grand jury investigation should continue?
No, I think it's taxpayers' money wasted because he's dead and gone. There's nothing that can be done about it.
Members of the OPEA crowded into the Sequoia Tunnel Auditorium tonight. They came to find out what Governor Nye's new budget will do for them. OPEA only has 6,000 members out of over 40,000 state employees, but they think the power of their organization has already been felt. They may be in for a pay raise next year.
It will be an adjusted average, we got to deal with average tonight, because I have no idea, of a 15 to 18% pay increase for the average state employee. Keep in mind, that's not across the board. I don't know who will affect. To get an average of 15, 18 to 20, some will be 22, some will be 12.
Nye told the group that this is a $100 million package of state and federal funds, money the legislature will have to approve.
I don't think the pay raise is going to be what he says it's going to be. Well, he said $100 million, but, look how it's been chopped down before.
Well, I believe it's a very positive step in the right direction, yes. But I believe it's far short of what it should be.
Most people here are happy with the pay increase that they could get. However, the legislators are proposed to get a 40% pay increase. And as one man here said, what about us? Well, right now, all they can do is wait and see. Jane Boone, Action 4 at the state capitol.
Oklahoma Farmers Union President Jimmy Gerald said yesterday on Action 4 that the big grain companies forced down the price to scare farmers into...
We've got short supplies of grain worldwide, and if there's a shortage, why should price drop? If anything, the price should be increasing instead of decreasing.